Do what you are called to do, not what you can do. That was the post that I made yesterday that prompted this conversation that you and I are about to have. Um, I made the mistake last year of doing something that I could do, but it wasn't what I was called to do in its entirety. Pieces of it was. What I want to share with you today is why we really don't have the luxury of just doing things to be doing them. We don't have the luxury because we only have so much emotional, mental, and physical bandwidth. You only have so much emotional, mental, and physical bandwidth. You are called to do something very specific with your gifts and talents. And when I say that very specific, I don't mean doing one thing because you may be like me, a very multi-passionate person, a very multi-skilled person. You may be able to do a lot of things well. That goes against a lot of what, modern Western society is telling us. Yes, you should go deep in your thing, but if you are really, really gifted at a couple of things and you know that that's your calling because you can be of service to people in that capacity, then do those things and do those things well. I made the mistake of taking on a project that wasn't fully aligned with my calling. A huge piece of it was because it had something to do with developing people, but the rest of it wasn't. And the 80-20 rule, it was really like that situation to where the 80% of it honestly was something outside of my interest. I won't say skill set because really I can do anything I put my mind to, but I didn't have the necessary resources and support to get it done and get it done well. The 20%, I was absolutely thriving because that was my calling. And I made the mistake of staying in it longer than I should have, and it was to my detriment. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you to where you have been actively involved in something and you were doing it because that 20% felt good or that 20% served you well or because the money was good or because the what do you call it, like the credibility or the whatever you were getting from it was serving some part of you, but in another part it wasn't serving you well at all. And it got me. It got the best of me. This project that I was on, it was slowly sucking the life out of me. And the reason it was slowly sucking the life out of me is because where I was pouring out, I wasn't getting anything reciprocated. I wasn't being poured back into. And what's coming up in my mind, even as I say that, I am always tapped into God. I am always getting, fed from that source. But this particular project, I, separate of getting paid for, which is cool, that was a big piece. I don't want to say that was it because again, that were some I want to say this the right way. There were pieces of it that did bless me, small pieces of it. So when I weighed the cost against the loss, the loss was far more detrimental. And I made the mistake of doing it because I didn't slow down and really like do what I need to do and ask myself, like, April, is this aligned with what you're supposed to be doing? Right? So I ask you that with what you're doing right now. And when I say what you're doing, your work, your exact position, who you're connected with in your friend group, or what you're doing socially outside of work, is it aligned with your truth? To where this is who you are and you're showing up as like the best and brightest version of yourself and you're not making any sacrifices to your identity, which means you have to know your identity. You have to know who you are. You have to know what is it that you're supposed to be doing in this season, in this time and space. And that piece is critical because what you were doing may not be what you're supposed to be doing right now. And what you start doing right now may not what you should be doing next year. I will never know the answer to that, but you do. And here's how you know. You know it because you feel it, because you are congruent, because what you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're doing and what you're producing, it is all aligned. You aren't all over the place. You aren't saying one thing, doing another thing, putting on a show and then really like not liking the work that you're doing or the people that you're doing it with. And again, as I said in the post rather, it could be something as simple as you work at the right company because you want to be in that field, you want to be in that area, you want whatever training, you want whatever, but you may just be in the wrong position. You could be looking at another department and it's just totally lighting you up thinking about the work that they do. So I want to ask you a question, and I really want you to think about it. When you look at your life, all areas of your life, your financial life, your physical body, your mindset, your mental health, your social network, your career, when you look at your intellect, what are you learning and listening to? Is it all aligned or is it kind of all over the place? And it doesn't take a lot. Recently, I was in a conversation similar to this one. I've actually been talking about this in different ways with several people, which is why I was inspired to just share this video. There's a scripture that says, "A little leaven leavens the whole loaf." And leaven is like the yeast that makes bread rise. And so it's saying a little bit of that stuff make all the bread like be leavened. It's filled with yeast, it rise. I've never like baked bread, so I don't know the details, but I understand the scripture. A little bit of misery can make your whole life miserable. And oftentimes, if you aren't careful, you'll push that to the side. But then, if you're pushing that to the side, what else are you pushing to the side? Are you pushing a little bit of your happiness to the side, a little bit of your peace? Again, a little bit of you being in total alignment with your truth. So, the mistake I made was I said yes too quickly because I looked at the bigger picture but not the small pieces of it that were taking up, a lot of my time and energy throughout the week. And it really drained me. And like November of last year, like I went down. I was in bed for days completely just saddened with myself. I wasn't pointing the blame at nobody else. I was exhausted and I had let it go on for so long, which is why I used the term burnt out because I had nothing. I was completely depleted. And then I kind of recovered and took a trip to Paris and I was better after that. And I know everybody can't do that, but I needed to do it because my spirit had been calling to go to Paris for a while and I actually got what I needed to get. But it wasn't a good time for me. And it wasn't just when I burnt out and was in bed. It had been happening for months and months and months. So I say all of that to say this: sit with yourself, check in with yourself in all areas of your life because you are one person living one life. So it's not that you just put work over here and then everything else over here, or family over here and everything else over here. It doesn't work like that, friend. You are one, and there's an integration between every aspect of your life. So I want you to go through and just check in with yourself. Does who you are, how you're showing up, the words that you're saying, the things that you're doing, whatever you're producing or creating, do they align with the truth of who you are? And no one knows that except you. And when you check in with God and just make sure that, like, am I being fruitful based on the seeds that are in me? You'll get that answer sooner than you can imagine. So don't make the mistake I did and say yes when you know that all of it's not going to serve you well. Because in one way or another, you will pay the price for it, and nothing is worth your well being. Nothing is worth your joy nor your satisfaction in life. Nothing at all, or no one. So continue to stay great. In the weeks to come, I'm going to be launching a group called Permission Granted, and it's going to be following this scope. I really want to help people, and it's going to be for women. So, fellas, sorry, not sorry. But this is going to be a girls group because my sisters are who I want to talk to and chat and share with each other. And for nothing else other than to have a safe space to come in and peel back the onion layers of an identity you may have put on yourself that isn't yours anymore, or to talk to another mom and say, how did you still maintain your identity and your joy when now this little person came in and took over your life? We're going to have people in the group talking about all of that. It's just permission granted to tap in and be who you desire to be and not who this world and this world system is telling you that you should be. So more to come on that, but stay congruent, stay aligned, walk in your truth. And as always, you got this.